What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? After more than 150 conversations with executives from companies like Disney, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, I've learned that sports is a common denominator. Some of our guests' athletic experiences earned them a place in their sports hall of fame, like Chick-fil-A chairman Dan Cathy. Some hung up their cleats after high school, like Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian, while others, like Condoleezza Rice, claim they weren't that great in their sport. But no matter their skill level, they have all told me that being a part of a team taught them leadership lessons that they still use today. In partnership with Chief Executive Magazine, I'm your host, Don Yeager, here to give you an all-access pass to genuine, authentic, fireside chat-like conversations with today's business icons so that you can create powerful change in your organization. This is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is Christina Kosmowski, a prominent leader in the tech industry who has held executive roles at Salesforce and Slack before taking on the role of CEO at LogicMonitor, which helps companies monitor, manage, and maintain IT infrastructure. Christina is celebrated for her customer-obsessed approach and draws on valuable leadership lessons learned from her time as captain of Northwestern's first women's Division I soccer team. Be sure to visit corporatecompetitorpodcast.com/notes to access my favorite quotes from today's session and a reflection question to get you thinking about applications from today's conversation.
How do I lead these teams? It's super important that you get people from all aspects of your life and see you in different lenses. Otherwise, you're only always taking into account like a single stakeholder. So people usually think of, oh, I need to go to someone that's more senior than me and they're going to give me the advice. Well, you know what? Getting the feedback from people that worked for me was more valuable than people that I'd worked for because they saw me in a different way.
Christina, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about this and love the various folks you've interviewed in the past as well and their stories.
Your story is a unique one. You actually went to Northwestern to play on a team that had never even existed. You were the first recruited class into the school to play soccer. Boy, that's daring.
Yes.
You know that anytime you're starting something like that, it's going to stink for a bit.
I don't think I did know that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I come from like a complete winning background. I went to visit Northwestern like this summer before my senior year and I loved it, but they didn't have a soccer team. So I went kind of stomping into the athletic office and I said, I would love to go here, but you don't have a women's soccer team. And they kind of put a smile on their face and they said, well, we have a secret. We just hired a coach and we're starting the program. And they gave me her phone number and started calling her and sending my VHS highlight tapes.
You can't throw VHS out there. Now we're totally dating this.
Yeah, exactly. But I was excited about it. And I think I was a little ignorant. You know, I read a quote, if people knew how hard something was, you probably wouldn't do it. So it's good to have a little bit of ignorance in there. But it was a school I loved. I was really academically oriented, wanted to play soccer. And so I was super excited. And the opportunity to be able to play and start a program really drew me in.
What was it like?
It was hard. We won 3 games that year out of 21, and I had never been a part of a losing team before. So I was just beside myself. I didn't know what to do. I would cry after every game we lost. I couldn't talk to people. I was really distraught. What do we have to do to get ourselves out of this and not be okay with losing? Like I became captain my sophomore year in part because my coach saw that I was so furious by losing so much. Like I did not like to lose. So I was going to figure out whatever it took for us to get into a winning position. I got to get sharper. There's no room for mistakes. I was relentless in my training. So I came back in the fall ready to go. but I didn't have my team do it.
Mm.
And there was this fitness test we had to do. It was called the Cooper, just under 2 miles in 12 minutes. All Division I soccer teams did this. Everybody hated the Cooper. It was the first thing you had to do when you stepped on campus. And I show up, crush the Cooper, like absolutely crush it. Most people don't finish. And if you don't finish it in 12 minutes, you have to do what's called a breakfast club, where you have to get up every morning before your 3-a-days at like 5 a.m. and keep training till you can get it. That infuriated some people, not infuriated, but they're just like, what, what the heck just happened? And so my entire team looks at me. They literally said, oh, Christina's a freak of nature. Freak of nature? What are you talking about? I was like out in the snow and ice training and doing all this stuff. And then it made me infuriated that people weren't in shape. I'm like, we just came off this losing season. Why is everybody not crushing this right now? Every single one of us should be doing everything that's in our control. Like, we can't control the other things, but we can control our fitness levels, our preparation. It was a real reckoning moment. Like, we were all just kind of screaming at each other on the field because I was so furious that they thought like I had just kind of naturally came to this conclusion, and they were equally fired up to like, how did you get in this such great shape? And that was the moment that I realized I cannot go at this alone. Like, I did not bring my team with me. And we did better my sophomore year, but we still weren't where we needed to be. And we said, all right, what do we all need to do? How can I bring everyone else on this journey? And how do we really identify like how we get sharper and up our skills and come together? And then our junior year, we went to the NCAA tournament.
Wow. So there's a combination of the furiousness and you saying, I'm sorry, I didn't think to bring you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And as a leader, that's what it takes. So talk to me about that NCAA tournament year. What was starting to click? What were you starting to feel? What was fueling that growth to suddenly where you're competitive? That has to feel good.
Yeah. There's this expectation. You expect excellence and you expect to win. That is a mind shift that we had, which was like, all right, we now deserve to be here. We expect to win, and we're going to hold each other accountable to that. And you have to have that confidence. And I say that a lot working with startups, because the soccer team was kind of my first startup. And that's what got me hooked on it, is that people don't know that yet. We were young team. So people didn't expect us to be in the NCAA tournament. People didn't expect us to win. If we don't have that expectation and that confidence for everyone else, then how would we be able to do it? And so we couldn't just look at the overall record, because that would be very demotivating. So we had to pick these milestones to say, here's what we're going to celebrate. While it may not be the long-term goal yet, we have to celebrate those various milestones. People have to believe it's possible. When I ran a sub 11 Cooper, nobody saw that as possible for them. They just saw it as like, oh, Christina must be this like unique kind of unicorn. Oh, I'm not actually a unique unicorn. I just did a lot of training to get there. And so it's like, how do I show them that they can also do that? And that also helped us bring in new recruits to kind of push us. I'm a big believer in this combination of bringing in new talent while having the foundational talent as well and bring that greatness. But in order to bring in the A talent, they have to see that you expect to win and you believe it for them.
A players want to play with A players.
Yeah, exactly.
I love talking to audiences about how an organization's culture is either created by design or default. Every organization has a culture. The great teams actually work to design it. They don't let it happen by accident. As a soccer captain, you had this unique experience of shaping this team's culture.
Yeah. I feel like I use exactly that today. I mean, especially in this macro environment. LogicMonitor culture is super intentional. We talk about that. I use sports metaphors all the time.
I know that's why your name came up to us because these metaphors show up often.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, you've got to have the skills and the preparation. No unforced errors, like no room in these environments. You have to control what you can control. Secondly, the power of the team. If we don't come together, if we're not aligned to a common vision, then you're not going to bring that exponential power of the team. And then we talk about accountability. And if I go back to that moment after the Cooper race, there was accountability to me to say, like, why didn't I bring people on this journey? But I was also holding the team accountable to we have to expect the best. Everyone needs to expect that of each other. We do that a lot at Logic Monitor. And some of that's through like inspection. If you're in sales, you are accountable to setting the customer vision to be able to pass to the customer experience teams. And if you aren't doing that handoff, then they can't be successful. And I expect the customer experience team to hold the sales team accountable to that. And I expect the sales team to hold the product team accountable to creating a valuable product. We work together, but then hold each other accountable to those expectations.
Love that. I read a quote that you had where you're talking about your experience on the soccer field, and you say, winning takes teamwork and building great teams takes grit, creativity, and endurance. In the workplace or in environments where dollars and cents are at play, sometimes we're expected to turn things around more quickly. We don't get the grace of endurance. How, as a leader, do you manage that? You understand this has got to be a long play, but at the same time, there's short term expectations.
Yeah. I've been using this analogy literally like the last couple weeks. So I'm sure my team would laugh if they say this because I'm like, all right, we're in like double overtime right now. It's hailing outside. The field's all wet. Conditions aren't great. We're not winning, but we're not losing. How do we fight through these moments? We have to get up and play a game again tomorrow. Let's not do anything stupid that would prevent us from moving forward tomorrow, but let's stay really focused on what can we do to win in this double overtime when everyone's tired and the conditions are tough. It's constantly being able to know where you're going, but then bring it down to what you need to do in the moment.
I love it. You know, you've spoken about the role of your personal board of executives. It helped you maintain authenticity and accountability. Your board includes your father, your daughter, who plays college soccer at Northwestern, also, your former Salesforce manager, who's now COO at Cisco, and even some of your direct reports. Can you share an example of a time when bringing your board of executives an issue provided you some crucial guidance?
It's super important that you get people from all aspects of your life and see you in different lenses. Otherwise, you're only always taking into account like a single stakeholder. So people usually think of, oh, I need to go to someone that's more senior than me,
Right.
that's been my boss, and they're going to give me the advice. Well, you know what? Actually, best advice is often people that reported to me. Your children can hold you accountable in a way that nobody else can because they will completely call you out.
Do these people who are on your board actually know they're on your board?
You know, no, I mean, I think they do now because I talk about it. But mentorship, people think it's this like rigid thing. I don't believe it should be. You need to be purposeful around who you're talking to and seeking advice from, but it comes in different waves based on different things that you're tackling, different moments that you're having. One of the things my leadership relies on is that people trust me, that they trust that I have the company's best interests at heart. They trust that I have the team at heart. And it's all for the benefit of the individuals in the company. When people don't understand you or know you, it becomes very hard to lead with that. And when I came to Logic Monitor, I had really underestimated how hard it is to come in and be a leader when you're on Zoom and people can't see you. I was able to call a couple of my former direct reports and kind of say, hey, listen, like, I got to come in, I got to drive this transformation earlier. Nobody knows me. I think I kind of get misunderstood sometimes on Zoom. Help me out. How did I occur to you, when I came in and did this stuff? And they were able to shed the lights on like what were my positive traits and like ways to kind of show that to people so that they could get to know me a little bit better. And once people know and understand you, your intensity and drive and pushing forward, everyone will follow through it. So I created a Slack channel called Where is Christina? And I would take selfies of myself at home. People, if they saw me on something, they'd take a picture of me and I would make fun of myself in different ways so people could see that humility. I did one like reading CEO for Dummies.
That's perfect.
Yeah. And we still use that channel today. And I think it's a fun way for people to see me in a different light. And then, of course, being able to have these frequent touch points, more employee roundtables, and just different one on one coffees with folks and making that time for people to get to know you as a leader and not to skimp on that. That moment was more about how do I lead these teams? And so getting the feedback from people that worked for me was more valuable than probably getting feedback from people that I'd worked for because they saw me in a different way and couldn't tribute to like what's it like having to be led by you. So it's not formal, it's got to be fluid, but it also does have to be intentional at the same time.
Fluid and intentional. I love that. You mentioned that one of the lessons that your former Salesforce manager, Maria Martinez,
Yes.
taught you was, quote, make decisions that are grounded in insight. It almost sounds simple, but can you unpack it a little bit? Was there a backstory there that led to that nugget of advice?
Maria is an incredible leader. She's worked at AT&T, Microsoft, Salesforce, Cisco. I think she's soon retiring. But talk about a relentless leader. She's relentless. Her ability to kind of use data has been a big part of that. And she's always said if you have the data and the lenses with the company and the customer success, you can never be wrong. When you use that, it allows you to be brave and make tougher decisions because it's not subjective. It's not about what does Christina think. It's laying it out. Here's what the data is showing us and what's best for our customers and our company. And if you're always keeping that in mind, you can never be wrong.
Right.
My last role at Salesforce, I ran a $4 billion renewals business.
Wow.
The company, had been growing fast. And so it was all about, obtaining new logos. And then we got to this point where all of a sudden our renewal business was actually larger than our new business. And
Wow.
that was a big cultural shift for the company. So it's this incredibly important feedback and can often be very eye opening. You've got all this momentum where you're like selling this vision to the customer. And then the renewals, that's actually where people put their money where their mouth is. I had a lot of this data that wanted to get fed back into the machine. And the machine wasn't used to that because it had always been this new logo business. So, how do I put more emphasis on it and take the results of what was happening at the renewal and get that feedback back into the loop in a way that's constructive and kind of use that to drive where we were going to make changes in the organization? It took a lot of preparation. People are going to always kind of poke holes in stuff. So we really spent a lot of time getting our systems right to capture that data. And that was the first step is saying, okay, what do we need to do from a systematic way to ensure that we're capturing this data in an accurate way? And then we were able to get that. And then we created forums by which we could share the data. That was the second step, sharing the data and not putting observations on it to make it less kind of intimidating.
You're just letting the data speak for itself.
Yeah, exactly. And then once people started to see it, they started kind of asking for more of it. How do we get more of this insights from you? And then over time, you build this trust that you can start to apply recommendations based on that.
Wow. I love that. A question we ask often, because I'm fascinated by this from the corporate side. I actually argue that the word teams is overused in businesses. Truth is, in most business organizations, the team, as described, It's really just a group of individuals kind of working independently, but with the same business card. You've been part of teams. You've helped a team actually come out of the ground. If you're trying to coach us on how to build a team, take a group of disparate individuals and get them to go someplace together, what would be some things we should do to truly build a team?
You have to set your values. So, how you operate. At Northwestern, what we were figuring out our first year, which is like, what is really important to us? And then we can attract and recruit people that support those values. We don't always just want the best soccer player. We want the best soccer player who does it in this way. At LogicMonitor, we've set our values and we interview based on those values. So we actually ask all of our people who've interviewed to talk about how this person or individual embodies that. And so, like, better every day is the value at LogicMonitor.
Right.
What we did today is not going to be good enough for tomorrow. We always have to have that mindset. And so you can ask them for specific examples of where they've done that in their past. And especially around one team and even customer obsessed, you listen for words I or we. Are they talking about the company more than the customer? And one of the things we do, which I actually learned from one of our leaders at Slack, Bob Fratty, who ran sales, was we go all the way back on their resumes, like almost back to their college experience. And we look for patterns. It's incredible because people are often taken aback. They're like, what? You're asking me about my first job out of college? But those patterns start to show up. All right, your first job out of school, what did your manager say you did well? And what did they say you needed to work on? And it's really illuminating if 25 years later,
The manager's still saying the same thing.
exactly. You have to have your North Star. So, what is the vision
Hmm.
that you're going after? And that vision has to be an enduring vision.
So, in other words, it's not getting to the NCAA tournament, it's being a consistent participant in the NCAA tournament.
Exactly. Exactly. And we're a winning organization. It's this enduring vision that can span 10 years, 20 years. Then it's like, what needs to happen this year to help on the stepping stone to that long term vision? Then you create the exact programs that you're going to focus on this year to help you achieve that long enduring vision. And then you have the values for like the how you're going to operate on those. And then you have to have the metrics. How are we going to know if we're on the right track or we're getting there?
Hmm.
Even at Northwestern, we were super clear. Okay, in the first year, there were some specific skills that we were lacking. And we spent that year really focused on defense. And then the next year, we said, all right, we got our defense down. So now we need to say, how do we connect from defense to offense? And then in the third year, it's like, all right, how do we actually start to create these moments where we can take players one on one and go to goal? So it's like all about building to that. But it was the vision having this winning program almost 30 years later.
That's fantastic. So, I'd love to ask the question around the concept of momentum. Those of us who are sports folks can feel the shift. Momentum can change jerseys in the middle of the game. If you're watching it or even participating in it, you can feel momentum. But it's true in business too.
1,000%. And you can feel it. It's a feeling, to your point. You can always intuitively feel it.
Right. There's usually a moment where something shifts, something happens, a spark occurs that allows a flame to take control. In your business life, have you seen a place where momentum has occurred, where this happened, and from that, there was just a feeling that good was on the horizon? Is there an example that you might throw our way?
I think if you're sometimes grinding away, you don't always know that the momentum is shifting. So it's really important to be conscious literally every day and every week, every month to stop and say, like, is what I'm doing moving the needle or changing the momentum or changing the drift? If you're ever river rafting, the current can just take you and you can be like, I'm working really hard, paddling really hard, but you're not changing the direction of that current. You have to constantly pause and say, Am I going in the direction that I want to be going? And if I'm not, what do I need to do to change that drift? And in business, the only way you can do that is using metrics, both leading and lagging metrics to say, wait, is this going in the right direction? If it's going in the right direction, it may still be hard and you got to grit it out, but you've got to have those checkpoints. And if it's not going in the right direction, you need to figure out what you need to do to change that. You have to be grounded in that. But there is this feeling too. We try to bring that to life with stories that show where we're winning and where we're having an impact. What are employee stories that they can share their journey across the way as well? So, being able to kind of rally the troops, bring to life these stories that actually pull the emotional side of it, as well as showing it through the data so that you're building that trust and showing up in both your leading and your lagging metrics.
I love that. Over the course of a 30-year career in journalism, I've asked 2,500 of the best athletes and coaches that I've worked with if they could identify one habit, something they build into their daily routine that they believe gives them a competitive advantage, something that you do repeatedly that you think makes you a little better than those you're competing against. What would the habit be? Do you have a habit? Is there something you do that's part of the Christina magic?
Well, I don't know if it's like a habit per se. I've always had like a little chip on my shoulder, like always seen myself as the underdog and had that mentality. So it's like, I better be as prepared as possible and do whatever it takes. So in soccer, it was running, it was lifting, and in work, it's being prepared. It's reading the market, it's reading the reports and knowing all the data for where we sit. It's about creating the habits that I need to ensure that I'm prepared and being like a little bit relentless about it because we're the underdog and, this chip on the shoulder that we've got to go get it.
I would tell you that every winner I've ever worked around has that chip.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I have loved this and I have really appreciated all the wisdom. Is there a way those who might want to learn more about Logic Monitor, learn more about you, is there a best way, best place?
Yes. Obviously, we've got our website, but I'm also personally active on LinkedIn and Twitter. And so is the Logic Monitor handle as well. So that's a great way to find out and reach out. Like, I also love when people reach out to me and meeting all different types of folks.
Well, thank you so much today, Christina, for being a corporate competitor.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun to go back in the journey.
How about the idea of going to a college that had never had your athletic program and starting a team? That is, as she said, the ultimate startup. I picked out three amazing lessons from this conversation. The first one is when she said, you can't go it alone. She'd been upset about losing that first year, never lost as many games as she lost in that first year. But so she went out, and because she was so driven, she worked on her own development. But she didn't bring anybody on her team with her to develop themselves alongside her. So they showed up, and there was an uneven process as she had to apologize for not bringing them along with her, and that you can't do it alone. What a powerful lesson it was for her as a leader, but also for her teammates. Secondly, I was really struck by her personal board of advisors. She seeds that board with people who come at her from all walks of her life because they'll see the same problem in different ways based upon how they see her. That allowed her to get some wisdom from them to do things like establishing that Slack channel. Where is Christina? Reading CEO for Dummies. I love that, the humility that that takes, the ability to laugh at yourself, what that says to everybody who's not getting a chance to meet you in person, but getting a chance to learn a little bit about you, taught to her through her personal board of advisors. And thirdly, not just having values internally, but interviewing to those values, crafting questions to see if the value is something that the candidate actually lives and whether there's a match there. I love the one on growing and becoming better every day as a value. But if you are still struggling with the same things you were struggling with 20 years ago, by the way, you haven't gotten better every day. That failure might disqualify you as a candidate. So many amazing lessons there. I loved it. I had a fun conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I appreciate you. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. Feedback helps us spread the insights of our guests to a wider audience. It actually increases our ratings. Thank you so much for those who have done so in the past. And catch new episodes every Wednesday. Subscribe at corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to be the first to get a chance to listen. And as a thank you gift, I will send you a chapter from one of my best-selling books. Stay connected with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My handle is @DonYaeger, DonYaeger. And until next week, I appreciate you.